So, let's move you back. So, yeah. I figured I'd take this opportunity while we have our Greek lemon chicken cooking to kind of do a get to know you. And the reason why I want to do this is because now I have to adjust it. So let's do a get to know you. I have been cooking since I was 9 years old. And I'm not talking just pancakes. I'm talking full meals for my family. In my family, everybody was expected to do a job and contribute to the family. And me being the oldest of three, I assumed that second mother role. And that meant cooking, taking care of my sister and my brother, who weren't that much younger than me. My sister's only like 16 months younger than me, and my brother is 9 years younger than me. But by that time, I had already been cleaning, cooking, and, you know, being little mother to my sister and my cousins. We came up in pairs. So I have my twin, love you, Tonio. Kai has hers, Ricky. My sister has hers. Does Mindy have hers? I don't know. But everybody has a twin. And so we were expected to care for the next couple and then the next couple. But either way, I've been cooking since I was 9 years old. And I didn't like to read very much as a kid until my mother found this like specific book, an author that I liked, and I could relate to this little girl. I will never forget Ramona Quimby. And I loved all of these books, and I started eating them up. But prior to that, she couldn't get me to get a book. I just wouldn't read them. So once I started reading, then I started picking up all these like books that had recipes in them. And I ended up learning pretty much every recipe that was in the Laura Ingalls Wilder things. If she says she did something in her book growing up in the homestead, I tried to do it. I will never forget my molasses icicles that I made. She said that she got the fresh driven snow and they poured molasses on them, and it was a treat for her and her brother and sisters, or, you know, that was their treat. So I did it. I remember getting a book, dandelion tea. No, corn silk tea. And I tried that. I got all these ears of corn and I made a tea. And it was really yummy. Same thing with dandelions. I did the dandelion tea. I did the dandelion greens. And I was never afraid to experiment. I remember the park that was across the street from the house always had these crab apples. And I would pick these crab apples, and in my 10-year-old brain, I was going to make a crab apple pie. It probably would have been horrible. Crab apples are so tart. They're almost like cranberries in their tart factor. But that's what I was going to do. I was always thinking of ways to experiment with food and come up with these recipes, because I was happiest when I was cooking. And the life lessons that my mom taught me, I guess I ended up bringing into adulthood. You know, from how I clean my chicken. I cannot remember how many hours I spent at that kitchen sink cleaning perch, getting every single little bone. My mom's big fear was that we were going to choke on a fish bone. So we had to get every bone out. And when I say every bone, if she thought that there was a bone, we heard it. So I learned how to really be meticulous when it came to cooking, and I guess I'm not a picky eater when it comes to flavors and tastes and trying new things, but I am a picky eater when it comes to, is it clean, is it sanitary, is it something that I'm willing to eat myself, that I'm willing to serve someone. So I'm all about quality. There are certain stores that I will not go to. I live in an area, you know, where you have these grocery stores like Food for Less. I don't shop there. I don't like the quality of their meats. I'm not saying that they're bad meats. but I just don't like the quality. So I'll end up going to 7 or 8 different grocery stores to get what I want. And, you know, you can make a $5 steak taste like a $12 steak if you know what you're doing. And that's where my passion comes in. I remember my husband, he told me, he says, you know, you get nicer when you're in the kitchen. And it's true, because I'm able to put my heart and soul in it. I wanted to open up a restaurant for the longest time. I've managed other people's restaurants. I mean, there are so many things I've done in this life. If I could write a book on it, I probably would have to list it as fiction because it's so unbelievable. But I wanted this restaurant, and if you came in by yourself, you were not allowed to eat by yourself. So if you didn't want to eat next to anybody and have this family type of meal, family style type of meal, then you were free to go somewhere else. But the concept of my restaurant, I really wanted this family kind of dining. The foods would be served. There was no set menu. It was what I was making, and I would have variations for like vegans or vegetarians or something, but it was that day, that's what I'm making. So I wanted to do that, and I realized that people don't eat angry. They eat, and they can start off eating angry, but if they're angry and they're trying to eat, they end up picking, and they play with their food. But if they're truly enjoying what has been prepared for them, they start talking and they start laughing, and you find yourself talking to someone that you may not even know. And that was the concept behind it. We live in a country where food is abundant. It really is. But so many people go hungry. So I didn't really want to do the restaurant for profit per se. I wanted to share in something that we have a surplus of, and yet we still have people who are hungry. It's just a passion of mine. I try to transform things from their state. So when I did the wild berry dipping sauce for the jalapenos, I want to transform something that people normally attribute to being sweet into something savory, and it's mind-blowing because they would never have thought of that combination. And that goes back to me reading as a kid. My favorite books to read were cookbooks. I mean, I used to rush home. What 6-year-old, 7-year-old rushes home from school? Not to watch the Muppets, but to watch Julia Child and the Frugal Gourmet and Yan Can Cook. I watched them all. Channel 11, the People's Network. And my mom was like, "You're such a weird child." But everything that I learned from those people and these books, I have been able to use when I cook now. So I'm able to say, okay, well, this is not going to really taste well with this, but I can make this taste well with that. And that kind of plays into the series Chopped on the Food Network. They're given a basket of just random things, and they have to create these dishes out of that. And I'm nowhere near on the level of those chefs. I'm not a chef. I have a degree in psychology. I am not a chef by any stretch of the imagination. But I have a passion. So I was pretty much doing Chopped as a kid. And I was always trying to play around with flavor combinations. I remember my first attempt at a meatloaf. Wow. I used bran flakes because I knew you had to use something in there as a filler. And so I used bran flakes. And I wasn't sure how it was going to come out. And then I started playing around with my mom's spice rack. I think I put more use to her spice rack than she put to her spice rack. It was a horrible meatloaf. You know, I was like 10 years old, maybe 11 tops. And we didn't grow up eating meatloaf. It was my first attempt at a meatloaf. I knew what was supposed to go in it. But this meatloaf had bran flakes, green olives, black olives. And all these little things that I thought would taste good. No, it didn't. I like to play around with textures. You know, you eat with so many parts of yourself. You eat with your ears, your eyes, your nose. Before it even hits your mouth, you're already eating. You're just not ingesting. But when it hits your mouth, if it's just straight soft, you know, nobody wants to eat pudding. And if it's all hard, then it's like you might as well just have potato chips. So you have to have these breakdowns of flavors and dimensions, and you have to have this breakdown of textures. If it's crunchy on the outside, make it soft and gooey on the inside. If it's, you know, soft and gooey on the surface, have some bits and pieces of crunch in there. And you see that a lot. People add things for texture. So I play around with that a lot. I'm challenged now because I have two of the world's pickiest kids, you know, and they get that from their father. But they'll eat tater tots, they'll eat French fries, but they won't touch mashed potatoes. They will not touch hash browns. They'll eat potato chips, but they won't eat that. They'll eat tacos, but they won't eat a taco. They'll eat the tortilla, and they'll eat the meat, but they won't eat it together. And I know they'll grow out of it. It's just, I'm always trying to find ways to trick them. From putting their veggies in veggies in pastas or in the meatloaf, which is why I make the meatloaf the way I make it, with the veggies pureed in there, because they get the benefit of the veggie. They just don't eat the veggie. My husband will not eat cooked carrots, but if I puree the if I puree the carrot into the meatloaf, then he's eating that carrot. He gets the benefit of it, and he's never complained. So it all plays in part. I think that on any given day, I spend at least 6 hours in my kitchen. Any given day. I wake up, I make pancake batter, and what I don't use, I'll freeze. I'll put one bag in the refrigerator, and then I'll put the other baggies in the freezer, so then I can just pull. I'm very frugal when it comes to things like that. People who know me know that there was a time, and it was a hard time, pregnant, having issues in my relationship, my marriage, and it was hard, you know, so I had to find ways to be uber frugal, and I started pickling and jamming, you know, I started canning, you know, and I still owe my cousin some firecracker carrots. She loved them. And she asked for those 4 years ago, and I still haven't done them. Sorry, Kai. But if I can freeze it, I'll freeze it. I make my cheese sticks, and I'll freeze them. I don't cook them, but I freeze. I prepare them, I freeze them, and then when I'm ready for cheese sticks, instead of going out to the store and buying cheese sticks, I'll eat them at home. Same thing with jalapeno poppers. I'll make them, I eat them at home. Soups, I do a lot of soups that way. If I'm making tamales, I'll make as if I'm making it for Christmas party or something, and then I'll freeze them, and then that way whenever I'm ready for a tamale, that's what I have. So my freezer, my deep freezer is full of pretty much frozen food that I could possibly buy at the store that I've made at home for pennies on the dollar. I know the flavor, I know I'm going to enjoy it, and I know it's healthy. I make my kids chicken nuggets. Oh my God. If they know that it's time for me to make chicken nuggets, that's what they want for lunch until they're gone. And then I have to just make chicken nuggets all over again. And it's like, ugh. They're asking me now to make homemade fish sticks. I don't think I'm feeling that much muchness, but that's who I am. You know, I have done an awful lot, but nothing fills me with the joy that cooking does. I have sang. I've been a performer my whole entire life. I was singing before I could talk. I don't even know how that's possible, but I could. I've been performing. I remember going to school, you know, grade school, and my mom and dad had their bands. My dad had his, my mom had hers, I had mine. And on any given night, at least 3 or 4 nights out of the week, we were performing. One of us was performing. Sometimes 2 people were performing. My dad performed, and my mom would go do my shows or my sister's shows. In addition to being in gymnastics and cheerleading, I was always performing. So I wanted to incorporate all this effort people spent into me, you know. And they put a lot of money into my performing. I don't know. If you leave it up to me, I would never have been anybody really big or famous. I am good, but just wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It sounded good at the time, and I was good at it, but it's not what I wanted. I wanted to be a wife and a mother, and that's all I ever aspired to be. And so doing the things at home, that's where I'm happiest. So how could I take all this money that my family and my parents invested in me to have these singing lessons, to play the trumpet, to play the drums, you know, to learn the piano, the speech classes, all the medals, all the trophies that I won, how do I incorporate that into what I'm doing today so that their efforts weren't in vain? And I decided, with a lot of coaxing from my husband, to do a cooking channel. And you know, it's a lot harder than you think. I'm thinking on the fly. Most of the time, I have my recipes written down. I have created so many different recipes that I've had to try to write down because people liked it, and I wanted to share that with them. Let me get some lotion on my hands. You know, they really wanted me to do. Plus, I was trying to make a cookbook, but nobody buys cookbooks anymore. So I'm like, okay, I can do all of this, but who's going to buy this damn cookbook? So, with a lot of coaxing from my husband, he said, do a video channel. And so, we started off with my phone. And in the first few videos, I mean, it was a lot of growing pains. I mean, we're still having growing pains. We're still trying to learn how to most effectively use the camera, the lights that we have. It has to mesh into what I feel like cooking that day, because everything that I cook is dinner for that night. And